Hi, good afternoon. It's so good to see you. Familiar faces, virtual faces as well, and new faces. It's so good to have you around. And just to give you a short introduction about Rock and I will have a few words about ourselves to give you some context. So I'm Keren. I've been in the intersection of security and AI for the last 12 years. I've started as a founder myself of a ML-based startup when you had to explain what it means that the machine learning, and you had to explain that to VCs. I see here people relate to it, yeah. And then I was in special operations, beating attackers firsthand. Lots of attacks that I've seen. I can't tell more about that. But then I moved to Signia. I led a product in there. I've been in the incident response field and the managed XDR field. I joined Apex to secure generative AI because I truly believed in this mission. And about a few months ago, we joined Tenable to help raise the Tenable AI business.
Wow. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming and filling up the room. I'm Rock Lambros. I'm the CEO and founder of Rock Cyber. We're a cybersecurity and now AI security and governance consulting company based in Denver. A little bit of background on me. I did come up through the technical ranks, working with organizations such as eBay, we're a large global network security operations center for the federal government. I like to say that I'm a recovering CISO. Now I've been pointing one on TV for the past 7 years. And but most recently I was a CISO for an oil and gas company before heading off on our own. And you know, kind of like Karen, I do sit and come back to the intersection on business enablement, AI, cybersecurity. You know, I kind of believe that it's a triad that you can't really speak about one without the other anymore in today's modern business climate.
Perfect. So as Scott said, today we released the Agentic, the state of Agentic AI. The name has changed through the time. I won't tell you the original name. So along with great friends that we have here, Kala, raise your hand at the back. Evgenia was not in here, and Josh was not in here. We made a very long way to release it. And its goal was, us got so many papers. And we wanted to lay the foundations to all of the super technical and detailed papers, because we know how hard it is to get into this world. So the report itself, we talk about agentic taxonomy, we talk about trend analysis, solution ecosystem, regulation summary, and future trends. And today we'll put deep focus on the taxonomy to really help you understand and navigate between all the different agent types and why it even matters. We'll talk about the threat analysis. We'll show some real examples of incidents from real companies' environments, which is never spoken enough. And we'll talk about the regulation with the one and only expert of the regulation for AI. So this is just a hint, but I took this screenshot a week ago, and after that I saw more and more prompts like this in Fortune 500 companies that are our clients. And you know what the user got when he asked it? Anyone has guessed? Yes, so go around, tell me. The user actually got the entire reports of this, I wouldn't say the name, but of the bad manager, who is actually a bad manager, by the way, by your response. But the user got the full prompt and the full file of the assessment of his boss. And this is only the beginning. But before going into the incident and showing you the really cool stuff, let's lay the foundations. So why agentic taxonomy even matters, right? It's only definitions. But no, I think it really matters because the way that you handle agentic AI threats and risks, it depends on the context, where the agent is working. Is it working in production environment? Is it working in internal environment? What it is connected to? Is it connected to company data? Is it connected to customers' data? Is it connected to external tools? And of course, the interactions. What is the nature of the interactions that users have with this AI? Because it's really mattering. And now we'll go through the different types of agents that we map at the report. So the first, and if you're asking me, one of the most important type of agents will be the enterprise AI agents. And why we think it is so important? Because these are internally used AI agents. And the thing about them is that they are all connected to super sensitive internal data. So whether it is the financial reports, whether it is the database of production, whether it is client data or IP data, it's all super connected. We know that usually we've been using unpack to work with such components, but we will talk about it in a moment. Another thing about this type of agent is that they will be using RAG pipelines or direct DB connection to actually have the data, to have the right context for the job. And the other thing is that they usually trigger function calling, because otherwise it will be just LLMs, right? So these agents, their superpowers, actually how they're interconnected into your company, and now they can automate processes and do function calling themselves. So why we think it's risky? First of all, context poisoning. I guess all of you have ever heard about prompt injection, right? But think about it when the actual data that the AI relates on, its knowledge, is being poisoned. The output could be corrupted, the processes could be hijacked. Think about the unpack. We all know unpack wasn't being successful forever, right? You cannot track users' activities, and you cannot track how users apply the permissions when they create new files, for example, in the SharePoint. So enterprise AI agents make it easier to recognize new files that users didn't know that he could access. Super, super easy, like those, remember the report of this manager? Right. And the other thing will be the operational integration risk. So, of course, if an attacker will come and will hijack the workflow, it will be the worst case scenario. But having those agents connected to your workflows, it is super, super risky, even without an attacker being in the environment, and we'll talk about why. So the other type of agents that we have, and we map in the report, is client-facing agents. Those are usually applications that are based on AI agents to serve customers, to be, for example, onboarding agents, to be customer support agents. I guess anyone in the room has met those agents. So they're externally facing, usually fine-tuning models or actually agents that are just being deployed. They tailor to a specific system prompt and prompt engineering to be very, very good at their task. Yeah, and of course they're connected to external tools to automate themselves and to be very, very efficient. And why is it risky? So if before we were talking about internal use case, now we're talking about broader attack surface. So it is exactly like you will open any app, any SaaS application outside, but now take the AI risk on it, and the fact that most of our companies doesn't have any visibility to it, right? We know that also we can do an abusement to the prompt by any user manipulation. Remember the user bought a Chevrolet in only $1? Think about what could happen next. The last type will be the agentic ecosystem. So if one agent is risky, think about a couple of agents working together. So of course it will be super efficient, it will be super helpful for the company, and we wouldn't want to hold it back, but we need to know that. So there are two main types of agentic ecosystem. The first one is what we call mass multi-agent system, and in this use case, the agents are tightly coupled. By that we mean that there is a chain of agents that is connected by a coordinator agent that is supervising the agent tasks, so that one agent really know which functions or which request to give to each of the sub-agents, and he handles those all. The other types are distributed agent chains. And what is different is those that are loosely coupled. What's good about it is that we don't have to handle all the functionality ourselves, but what's bad about it, or what's risky about it, is that we do not know where our data goes, right? And we do not know what we get back in response from this agent. So the first concept we introduce in the report is the non-determinism concept of AI. I think it's mainly been discussed around LLMs in general, but when it comes to agentic AI, the impact is super real. So LLMs are probabilistic, they're not deterministic, as all of you probably know. It means the same input wouldn't give you the same output. And I wanted to test it by myself, so I said, we say it all the time, but I want to get the feeling of what it's like. So I prompted ChatGPT, who was the best singer. First of all, it said Whitney Houston. Then I said, okay, I'll ask it over again. What could it be? Then it was Freddie Mercury. I don't know which one you prefer, but pay attention. It was the same prompt, exactly the same prompt, with a different result. No manipulation in here, no system prompting, just me sending it over ChatGPT. Think about how it can get complex. Why I think it's important? Because outputs can be influenced by the context window, but by the knowledge that the AI has, by the internal state that it has. In agents, not like traditional LLMs, the non-determinism means different outputs as actions, different outputs that are production lines, right? Different outputs to the users, and we must be aware of it. The multi-step reasoning also amplified it, and it is very, very hard to reproduce any output that the AI creates, and we should be aware of it. So as we said, it can create unpredictable behavior. It is very hard to do forensic analysis, and of course security baseline should be fluid because we cannot expect specific answer to be given, right? So the second concept that it's my favorite, by the way, because it's the most juicy. It's the insider threat being multiplied by the agentic AI. And to be honest, when I started working with agentic AI and protecting customers, I was shocked by which prompts users are sending to agentic AI. What we mean by that is that whether a user is malicious or not, its ability to interact with sensitive data is now increased. So what could happen? Data exfiltration is the most basic one. Users are asking what we're interesting about. So if I'm being interested in the financial reports of my company, I'll just ask it. And the AI, it will respond. It will provide you with the data, and we'll see soon. Rat poisoning. We just saw a couple of months ago how companies used email invites or calendar invites to poison the rat. And it's so super simple, because I shouldn't be from the inside of the organization, or I shouldn't be compromising user credentials to get into the company, to get into the network and compromise the network. I can just spray you all, sending you email with the simplest prompt injection, and it will work. It will actually work. Another thing is the workflow injection. So it means that agents are instructed using AI adversarials to perform risky actions that bypass the company guardrails. Cool. So why we even mention it? Because those demands, those prompts, seem super legitimate, right? You see users from your own company just asking questions. You will never get that. If you wouldn't have the right visibility, if you wouldn't have the right boundaries, if you wouldn't be looking to it, you wouldn't find it, because those are seems like super legitimate requests. So let me show you some of the juice that I see on a daily basis. Everything that you will see now are real clients incident, of course redacted, of Fortune 500 companies. I see thousands of them daily, and I wanted to bring it over to this stage to bring the awareness, because it's already in your company. You just don't know it. So that's from an investment sphere, and this is a user who's actually not working as investor. He's working as an R&D. And he asked about the funding of the company, and in which other company it invested, and what was the exact equity. We don't want a user to access that information, right? I redacted the answer, but he got full response. Another example is a user who was super interested in the transactions that the company made. So she wasn't from, by the way, she wasn't from finance. I've been asking my clients, because I was super worried, she wasn't from finance. And she got the entire transactions of the company from the last 24 months as she asked. Imagine this data being leaked. This is the new ransomware. I see it as 2025 ransomware. Another user looking for the deals. User asking about specific account and the situation, and he got some juice over there. This one was about NDA with specific company, and he got the entire content of it. And he actually, by the way, after that, he asked about other NDAs and also got those. So it's not specific file that wasn't handled right. It is a trend we're seeing over here. This one is a funny one. You know, we all want to know how is our salaries and what's other people's salaries. AI answer that.
Good.
I wish you don't go and try it away and then I do the opposite of my intention. Wow, that could be problematic, but I trust you. So another NDA, and I can go on and on and on with this list. I see hundreds of those every day, and the intention was to bring it to your awareness. And there's things to do. We talk about it in our report, and I'm talking about it lots, and my talented friends over here also talk about it a lot, but it was super important for us, for you to know it. And now, after we saw a bit of juice, we move to the regulation by Rock.
Thanks, Keren. So Keren was kind enough to introduce me as a regulation. I just felt like to be very clear.
You are.
I don't know if there's a such thing, right? Because it's changing so fast. And even so in the report, we do lay out a bunch of the AI regulations that could have specific impact on agentic AI based on the wording in the regulations. As of about 3 weeks ago, when we kind of locked the report and submitted it for publication. What I'm going to talk about now are stuff that's happened since then, right? Kind of to Scott's point earlier, this landscape is moving super, super fast. So first, the AI Act Code of Practice, right? It's a voluntary framework to allow companies to essentially have a checklist to comply with the EU AI Act, right? The last milestone of enforcement, of the beginning of enforcement actions, whatever effect comes out on August 2nd. And it's a framework. It focuses on transparency. It focuses on copyright, right? So there are provisions in there around, not training on data behind paywalls, actually paying attention to the robot.txt file on a website, things like that. And it's primarily geared towards a lot of the frontier developers, the frontier model developers. It's interesting that just about everybody has signed it, including XAI, by the way, which gets a lot of grief about kind of its lack of guardrails, except for Meta. Right, so those are all just things to keep in mind. I'm not making any statements, pro, cons, against, but yes, if you're an organization doing operations in the EU and you're trying to evaluate which models to use, keep that kind of stuff into consideration. So America's AI Action Plan. So we're starting to see a very interesting shift in, honestly, the global landscape around the approaches between the East and West in AI. Or just even politically, right? So the U.S. for the last, decade and a half has been promoting more of a kind of a global cooperation type of agenda. It's very clear with the America's AI Action Plan, right, that we're starting to operate more unilaterally with regards to the priority of AI to our national interest and our national security. It's also becoming very clear to me that AI is the new space race. And the AI Action Plan, the America's AI Action Plan, is carved up into 3 kind of focus pillars, right? Around innovation, infrastructure, and diplomacy. Right, so the innovation piece tries to break down existing regulations, start rolling back existing regulation, as we've already been seeing with the rollback of Biden-era executive orders around AI, new executive orders with regards to AI and infrastructure. The infrastructure piece is laying out like an investment plan for new power plants, chip manufacturing, chip brains. Incentivize and subsidize dollars for building AI here in the States. we need to have an entire conversation that is another day's worth of like symposium around the sustainability behind AI and where are we going to get the power, where are we going to drive it. People are saying nuclear. Great, if we broke ground, if we got permits approved for a nuclear facility today and put the shovel on the ground for the first time today, we're not seeing any power realized out of that plan for us, almost a decade, right? By the time it's built, inspected, provisioned, all that kind of stuff. And, small cell fusion reactors, also same thing, right? Not ready for mainstream. If we started today, we're not going to see stuff for, close to a decade. So the China action plan, in comparison, which ironically this announcement was made either because of time zones, either the day of or the day after the American AI action plan came out, promotes a more kind of global cooperation agenda, right? Which we haven't necessarily seen from the People's Republic of China over the last decade, 2 decades, or longer, frankly, right? Which is smart, right? China is trying to control the narrative. And, right now, on paper, it's a very good narrative, right? They want to provide AI infrastructure to, particularly to lesser developed countries, which aligns to their strategy over the last few decades of providing roads, ports, schools in developing countries, right? They want to create kind of a global AI governance standard, leveraging the UN to the United Nations to kind of facilitate it. They warn of AI risk they warn that there's a risk of AI becoming kind of an exclusive thing for rich nations, right? So driving that strategy of investing in AI accessibility to lesser developed nations. And urges open sharing, right? Which, again, we have not seen out of China in decades, right? So I think it's a good shift, right? Just keep an eye on it. I think it's important to note that both the American Action Plan and the China Action Plan, at least to my knowledge in China, but certainly in the States, none of it has been appropriated. There's no official funding going towards it. Congress still holds the purse strings, right? There's only so much you can do through executive orders. And as we know, right, executive orders are as fickle as, the person in office, right? So just, use them as guidelines, play your strategy around them, but be flexible and adaptive. So some practical approaches, right? Essentially, the EU Code of Practice right now is probably the most tangible thing, and actually probably top of mind for organizations moving forward to being able to not only comply in Europe, but the EU AI Act in general, and by proxy the Code of Practice, are kind of being grasped onto as the de facto standard, if you will, for responsible AI. Right, responsible AI governance and rollouts. So make sure, even if you're not, my point is, even if you're not operating in the EU, if you're a AI, deployer or developer, it's probably a good idea to align to it. Sign it, don't sign it, but from a strategic perspective, it's probably a good idea to align to it to avoid issues moving down the road. And I think by doing so, you lay yourself a good foundation for adapting to whatever the U.S. puts out, whatever China is putting out, right? There are acts in Singapore, Canada's working on one, and they're all kind of leveraging, much like privacy across the world. It's like the GDPR is standard. The same thing is occurring with the EU AI. And with that, we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, please.